My name is Bauyrzhan Yedgenov. I'm an assistant professor in business school, part of the new department. I'm an economist. I was asked to talk about the project that I received. It's a ministry grant, and right now ministry grants are open for application and proposals. That's why it might be relevant for some who are applying for it, because some of the lessons that I learned were very important, especially from those who received before me. So Khairat Moldashov, who presented before, was very helpful in certain aspects of the proposal so that it makes your life easier and the planning easier. So the project is called Decentralization, Local Governance and Regional Development in Kazakhstan. I received this grant in 2024. 2024. Of course, the announcement was made quite late, but 2024 was the beginning of the project year. So it's a 3-year project. The total amount was 83,180,290 tenge. It's about $174,000 from the ministry. I'm not going to go deep into the project itself because everyone has different projects. So it's not about the project itself. It's about the proposal side of it, the implementation side of it. But the main goal of the project was related to evaluation of fiscal decentralization and local governance reforms in Kazakhstan. So I wanted to collect data of budget. We have 4 levels of government: Republican, Oblast, Rayon, and Okrug. So we're collecting the data, interviewing the mayors to understand what the issues are, if the decentralization is working or not, and so on. So if you're interested, I can share more information afterwards. But I wanted to talk about key aspects of both during the proposal and the implementation. So let me start with the team composition. So again, based on the advice of those who applied and won before me, our team composition was 2 senior research associates. So if you're planning 2-3 papers, you need at least 2-3 people who can lead a paper, because you as a PI cannot do everything. So you need at least one other. As a PI, your requirement to be PI is already to have a paper published. So you're supposed to have an experience in that. But you need help, so you need at least 1 or 2 more senior research associates who can lead the paper on their own, because otherwise it's going to be really hard to do everything by yourself. So I had another research associate partner from KBTU, also an economist. I had another research associate who is technically a PhD student, but he already had experience, so I could rely on him to lead at least a local paper. So that was Ozan Shorayev, who is a PhD candidate in the US. And then my thinking was I need 2 to 3 junior research associates. So if I'm leading a paper, I need 1-2 people to support that. For literature review, data collection, those are typically PhD students. It's important for them because they can, part of it, they can be co-authors or maybe even the main authors, and that's important for their PhD process. And as I believe right now, it's still a requirement to have a PhD student defend, right? So you need it by design right now. Before, my thinking was, I'll get some PhD students, they'll help me, we'll publish together, and it's going to be important for their career. So try to choose someone. Obviously, it has to be someone whose interests align with your topic. Choosing just random PhD student probably doesn't make sense, because their topic, their publication has to be related with each other. You cannot just publish with them, and if your publication has no relation to the topic they chose for their PhD, it doesn't count for them. So it's almost useless. So try to use a network of researchers. Like, for example, right now we're applying for another project. We need someone in agriculture economics. So you ask around in the network if some of the PhD students are thinking about their topics and what their topics are. If you're in economics or public policy related areas, Narcos University has a good pool of PhD students. It's an expanded pool. At SDU, we don't have anyone. I wouldn't take anyone from SDU anyway, unfortunately, but you need to know those networks. Depending on your field, find where you have a bunch of PhDs so you can work with them. I actually added 2 more PhD students afterwards, and one of the reasons why I added one of the PhD students is that I added a qualitative analysis, like I collected interviews and qualitative data, but none of us did qualitative analysis. All of us, very practical, all of us were economists and we did quantitative. So I realized, I thought I would find someone to co-author, but it is important. If you're doing qualitative analysis, add someone at mid or senior level who can do qualitative analysis. I was lucky enough to have a PhD student at NU who knows qualitative very well. So she can lead the paper, even though she's doing a PhD student. I mean, she's a PhD student. But not all PhD students can lead a paper, obviously. So if you add a qualitative analysis in your data, have someone who can do qualitative at mid or senior level. If you are the qualitative person and you have a quantitative analysis, add someone who knows quantitative. So kind of balance it out. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to lead a paper. If your whole career is you're doing quantitative, doing qualitative from scratch, learning that, it's just going to be, even if you do it, the quality won't be the same. So you need someone who is experienced. Another thing is the funding. So as you know, for the ministry grants, there is a limit for each year. And the limit is lower now. I think it's like 30, 25, 25, something like that. So basically 80 million in total. But there are some...
Like general condition, right? This sounds like this, right?
No, general, yeah.
I think they will like change low budget. I think it's 20.
Really?
Yeah, for 10.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna.
Okay. Yeah, but the general rules stay the same, 70% for the salaries. There is a 20% limit for external funding, like if you're paying someone from out of the university or the team. I understand their logic because they're doing it for budgeting purposes. They have a limit for each year separately. But sometimes for certain years, you may have a bulk expense, right? And right now, if you're in hard sciences and you need to buy equipment for 30 million or more, they allow some disbalance. But if you're in social sciences, you can have that. You don't have an equipment for 30 million tenge. So in my case, we hired a survey firm. So we had to be a little creative in kind of dividing the survey process into 2 years. So for example, like I paid 20%, around 20% of the grant went to the survey firm. And that bulk, about 12 million tenge, either I had to fit it in 1 year, then I had to decrease everything else, like salaries. What I went with, I divided 6 million to the first year, 6 million in the second year, and I divided the data collection process to the end of the first year, beginning of the second year. That's why I spread out the budget a little across the years. Otherwise, I would have to decrease something else like salaries and so on. Okay. Another thing, like if you really need data collection, which is high quality, just hire a professional survey firm. It's not cheap, but 20%, which is about 12 to 15 million right now, is a decent amount of money for data collection. And the survey firms usually are okay with that. In my case, I had to do it because my interviews were with the mayors of okrugs and rayons. And you cannot send students there. Nobody will accept them. You need an established survey firm that has already a relationship with local governments and can get into their offices and do the interviews. So for me, it was, and I didn't have any other choice. But you may think, okay, I'll just gather some students, send them to do interviews, collect data. If you really do a thorough job, train them, pilot them, I mean, if you can organize the whole survey firm process, then okay, if you all have experience with that. But if you don't have experience or time for that, then your data will suffer. Your data quality will not be the same. It's going to be very hard to verify. It's not going to be easy to do. So my advice is, if you really need good data, just hire a firm. You don't have to worry about the transportation, coordination, all this, a lot of jobs that you already have a lot of PI stuff to do. So you don't have to worry about it and just let the firm collect. If you're collecting certain interviews and you need to do it yourself, it's a different story. But if you need a more or less large-scale interviews, like for example, I had to do, I planned for interviews with about 60 mayors across Jitsu and Almaty Oblast. If I had to do it myself, I would have to travel quite a long distances, plan with them, send a letter through the oblast government and all those things. I wouldn't have had time for anything else in my jobs or anything. Like it would have been really hard to logistically. So
Actually, so you did interviews, right, with mayors, and then your questions were prepared beforehand. So you send it to the company, and then they done the interviews with questions, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like one system, like qualitative studies, or sometimes like the answers lead to different questions, right? So kind of the one, I think one of the like main purposes of doing interviews, like questionnaires, based on the answers you can ask the questions. So how do you control that? Do you like, because it's, I understand that it's kind of more easier to rely on. How do you know their profession and how expert are they? I don't know. How do you control the quality of it?
Yeah, I completely understand it. A lot of it depends on the survey firm. Like the one that I hired, and I suggest I had experience with them before, so I know how they work. They already even had experience in that topic doing interviews. So we prepared a lot in the beginning. We piloted this a little bit. We discussed the importance. So they had like 6 interviewers. So we had that preparation period where I explained the purpose and what I'm looking for. So if the survey firm is experienced enough, the interviewers are experienced, they will, like, up to 95% of the quality, they'll handle it. Like in my case, it was just no logistical, practical way for me to do all those things. To be honest, I don't even have interview experience. I probably would have done a worse job than they did. So if you discuss in advance and say, for example, work out the scenarios, like this is the question, but it can go different ways. If they talk about this, I want to follow up and ask about that a little more. If they talk about this, I want to follow. If you plan that in advance and then practice it and pilot it, a good survey firm can handle those type of things, in my opinion.
We also done like services.
No, I'm collecting the data from open sources, but not I mean, we're asking, they gave us their budget data, but that's mostly open source anyway, so we didn't really need it.
Just want to know because I'm an engineer, no one to this interviews and surveys for works. I was just although I'm planning to do surveys for analysis. I was suggesting I go to those companies and then talk to people there, like try to give them appointment with their like line managers and like people status. So before I distribute my questionnaires, I will talk to them. Maybe they will help, to find the right people to where my question goes. So,
Well, yeah, of course, yeah.
like I was still being advised I should travel.
Yeah, it makes sense. It depends on the topic completely. Like the question is whether the survey firm or someone you can hire separately can do it for you just as good. Like maybe it's not a survey firm, maybe you hire another senior researcher who can do it if you're too busy to do it. If you're free and as a researcher you can travel, do all those things, then why not? But yeah, it depends on the topic, on the purpose and everything.
Can we get the name of the company?
Absolutely, it's called Sange, SANGE. Yeah, I worked with them on a World Bank project where the task was really hard. We had to find young people with their address and phone number. They had to travel to remote locations. They had to do like 1.5 hour interview. So I saw how well they did in a very complex situation. That's why I was, even during the SDG conference, they came to do a mini presentation about this data collection. So they're not type of firm that just like, okay, we collected the data, okay, goodbye. They actually are interested in this type of topics as well. And they were asking me if the report is ready. They want to read it too. So if you find a survey firm like that who is also invested in it, that's a perfect case scenario in my opinion.
And then the prices, there's
well, I think for the money that I was able to give it to them, it was probably at the edge of like, yeah. So if they agreed for that, I think they're quite reasonable. The World Bank project was really big, so of course they received quite a lot of money. But I mean, you have to negotiate depending on how difficult your data collection is and all that stuff. Yeah, but they're really good in quickly providing you. They gave me the official price suggestion letter or something, the one that you can upload, and I think you need it for this type of things. I mean, for the ministry grants, so they can provide a letter saying this is the amount, this is the job that they expected to do, and so on. Yeah. Oh, one other problem, one of the lessons that I learned. So, as you know, if you're applying for ministry grants, the disbursement of funding can be late. So, for the first year, it was comical. We're supposed to start from the beginning of 2024. We get the decision in end of July, and we got the money in October. And we were supposed to report by November 15th. So, it's like, it's very comical. But the problem occurred, like, first part of the data collection was supposed to be in November, December. So I had money to give to Sanj for data collection. But the second part of the data collection was supposed to be in February and March, but money came in May. So I had to give them, like, either you have to ask university to pay them in advance, and then university keeps the money from the grant, but it depends on the university, who you're talking to, and so on. In my case, I actually had to pay some of it myself to them, and then Sanj returned it to me after they received the money. So you need to plan those things, because if they say like, I'm sorry, we don't have any money, unless you give us money, we cannot collect the data, and your data collection suffers because of that, that's not good. So you have to plan that the money might not come on time. So you have to work out some alternative, like talk to the university in advance, get their agreement, or be ready to pay yourself while you're waiting for the money. So you have to plan, don't plan large expenses for the beginning of the year, let's say like that, because you may not have money from the ministry yet. Yeah. Another aspect is calendar plan. And it again is related to how late the announcement and the money is given. So I was given this very valuable advice not to plan anything major for the year one. So they would plan literature review, some kind of preparations, maybe some public data collection, but that's easily available, not like interviews. So that's what I did. I put a lot of lit review and preparation for the first year, something that can be easily done within a month or two. Because again, as I said, we got the decision in end of July, we got the money in the beginning of October, 15th November, you're supposed to send all the reports. So you have only 1 month basically to do anything. So you have to be ready for that. The good thing is that for salaries, you get the yearly salary in like for 2 months. So it sounds like you're getting a lot of money because you're getting the whole year's worth of. But you have to have people who are ready to do something quickly, like within a month, so you can do the reporting. So that was very important advice. Because the money and the decision will definitely come late. And related to that, I would say it's logical, but don't plan any publications for the first year. Because if you rely on data collection and the decision and money comes late, you don't have the data, so you're stuck. So don't plan any publications for year one. For year two, you can I'm not completely sure about the requirements right now. At the time, my requirement was 2 local publications, 1 Scopus publication. For 2 local publications, I planned for 3 because there was a risk that one of them the data may not be collected on time. One of the research PhD students who was supposed to do the job disappears. So I planned for 3 just in case, which was good because one of them fell out, so at least I have 2 publications. But remember that local journal publications became harder. So don't rely that, those are the easy publications, these are, Scopus is hard. The local ones are getting harder and harder unless you know the editor who can make the process of review faster for you. You may have to wait months just to get published in a local publication too. So you have to plan for that. It's not easy. But there is a trick to some degree. In local publications, they need, for every issue, they need a foreign affiliation. So if in your team you have someone who has a foreign affiliation, that's a big bonus. Like for local publications, if they see one of the co-authors from foreign affiliation, it's much more likely to be published because they need it for their requirements. So in my case, it was a little, it wasn't lucky, but Bauyrzhan, for example, is a PhD candidate at George Mason University, so he has a foreign affiliation. Bauyrzhan moved to another university in Cambodia, so now I have another foreign affiliation. So if it's possible, if you can find a PhD student or some senior or mid-level associate who has foreign affiliation, it's going to be easier for you to publish at the local journals. So you can plan for that. For Scopus publication, again, for the ministry, all they care is about that you complete your requirements. You cannot say, it's already there, it's under review, it's almost published. They don't care. Is it published or accepted by this time or not? So my advice is, the advice that I get from previous grant recipients, plan for 2 Scopus publications. Plan 1 for like the minimum percentile required. I think at this time, I don't know the requirements now, but at the time it was 35th percentile or something like that. So plan a publication that you can send for a journal with like between 35 to 45, 50 percentile. So Q3, easier to get in, faster to get in, just to get the requirement out, and you don't have to pay penalties. And then you can plan another Scopus publication, more ambitious, like if you're going to collect the data, you're doing so much work, you might as well get a very good publication out of it from Q1 Scopus journal. So I would say plan two, one for minimum percentile just to get the requirement out, one for top journals. And the main lesson that I learned here and from other projects, don't rely on governments to get the data. It may sound easy, you know they have the data, you know they can easily send it to you by Excel, like in 5 minutes. But sometimes getting that data, the circumstances may, like we had this data request from Ministry of, the one that's Terter, it's like the ones that for Труда и соцзащиты. Yeah, so it's Ministry for work-related stuff and for unemployment. So basically, we requested the data, we're waiting for it, they were about to give it to us, but then the scandal happened. If you remember, like 2 or 3 months ago, there was a big scandal that that particular agency within that ministry sold the data to credit bureau, and a bunch of people were locked up. So after that, they were very reluctant to give any data to anyone. So this stuff happens in Kazakhstan. So don't rely on data that you request from government. You can add it as part of your project. And then if you get it, you can do analysis and plan for publication, but that shouldn't be your main source of data. In our case, what we did, we relied on data that is publicly available, but you have to work to get it. So for example, the budget data at okrug level, rayon level, they're all published in open sources, but they're published as a document. There's a bunch of mistakes. So it takes time for us to download those, clean those, but at least we know that as long as we work, we'll get the data. It's in open source. So that's why it was low risk, let's say like that. But if it's something that you cannot get it in open sources and you have to rely on government to get it, I would say it shouldn't be your main data. Okay? Yeah, that's basically it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I'm not sure how relevant it is as part of this ministry grants. But yeah, the valuable advices this type of advices that I got from previous grant recipients helped a lot during the implementation right now. So if there are no other questions, are there any questions online?
Sorry,
yeah.
Data set on eGov, is it open eGov.kz?
I think it depends on what type of data.
An educational data set.
I'm not aware. I mean,
It's like for personal use.
Oh, they have some data there I checked on the English version. There were some few data set where I did not really click. So I need to information related to numbers of graduate attendance.
well, aggregate data is most likely available. That's not a problem. Yeah.
Let's assume I want to collect an educational data set. Do I have to write to the Ministry of Education or?
Yeah. For example, the data that we request, like we have a project with Khairat Moldashev on education forecasting, like student expenditure forecasting. But the main recipient of the grant, that's the PSF grant, the larger one, is the agency within the ministry, which is Taldao. So they have the data on university scores, a lot of educational data, the background. But even we as project participants cannot get the data. We rely on them to do the analysis and give it to us, and then we use it. So if it's that type of data, you just have to be careful. I mean, just don't rely completely on it. Right now, the process is fairly easy. You do a request, and they can give it to you, de-identified data. But it's just risky. It can go smooth and they give it to you within a month, or something happens, someone at that agency or ministry like says, okay, I think it's too risky, and they just say no. So you have to have some kind of alternative, or like you might be screwed if your analysis relies on that type of data. You have to plan for risk that you may not get it at all. Okay. Any other question? Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions afterwards, I'll be happy to